So here's the question. What is the difference between being spiritual and being a follower of Jesus? Spiritual versus being a follower of Jesus. That's hard to define because I don't know what. I think that word
Everybody
spiritual
that uses the phrase spiritual has their
has
own
a
meaning.
different meaning. So it's really hard.
I was going to say, I don't think it's hard. It's hard to define spiritual. It's not hard to define being a follower of Jesus.
No,
So
that's right.
I would say anyone who is not actively saying, I want to be his disciple, which Jesus defines making a disciple as someone who intends to do everything Jesus commanded them to do.
Yep. Right.
So anything, when I read through the life of Jesus and I see a command and I look at it and I don't say, how am I going to do that? Then I might not be following Jesus. If I look at it and go, nope, let's go to the next one. I mean, nope, not going to do that one
I was
either.
just reading somebody the other day and said, when you find yourself explaining why Jesus didn't really mean for me to do this, you might not be a disciple.
The amount of times I used to say when I would have a group of teenagers and I'd be teaching them, and they go, well, I don't think that's what Jesus really meant. I said, hey, that's great. What did he mean?
Yes.
And then there's never an answer. And I say, if it's not what if he meant what you said, why didn't he say what you said? Let's get to what Jesus meant. The way I know, and I've actually had this devotional and I've led some people through it, is I think it's Sky Jitani's one of what if Jesus was serious?
Yeah.
That to me, a disciple of Jesus is a person who believes Jesus was serious when he told you to do things. So to me, if someone said, what's the difference between being spiritual and I don't know what you mean by spiritual.
Yes.
I know what I mean by, so are you doing that?
Well, and I know for sure every human being is spiritual.
Oh, well, we're made.
They may not recognize they're spiritual. I'm confident that's when somebody says I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. I'm confident that's not what they mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know for sure what they mean. So inevitably for me, when somebody asks me that, I go, "What do you mean you're spiritual?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?"
Yeah, and I don't know if you asked whoever asked this question, if you asked that for yourself or if you asked that because you've heard someone else say it. But like Ed just said, that's a very important question for you to have on the tip of your tongue all the time. When anybody asks you something, it's always appropriate to go back and say, well, first, tell me what you mean by that.
Right.
Yeah.
And try to define terms. And so if you've got a friend who's saying, well, I'm just spiritual, well, you really need to dig into that because it could mean a myriad of things.
And I would say for sure that's the right place to start because too often in my life, when I would get in those, I would begin to explain to them how we were either the same. I'm spiritual too, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I didn't even let them tell me what they meant by it. And then they go away thinking, I literally do think exactly what they think. Or I totally begin to tell them how they're wrong, and I haven't even heard what they meant yet.
Yeah.
And often I'll say the thing I've learned more recently is when I ask them to tell me what they mean, I often find out they don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good learning.
That when you say, "Hey, tell me what you mean by that," and they go, "Well, spiritual. Everybody knows what that means." I go, "Well, I don't."
But I'd like to know what you mean.
I can tell you what I mean.
Yeah.
Is this what you mean? Oh, no, that's not what I mean. Okay, well then tell me what you mean.
And I don't want it to come across as snarky because
No, it's not snarky.
I'm asking, whenever I ask that to somebody, I really am genuinely trying to be loving because I don't want to speak towards them, like you just described, speak towards them in a way that I'm not understanding what they're asking. I really want to know so that I can help and
Well, I'll tell you
communicate.
this. My wife and I have been married coming up this coming May, which is a long time now, so I'm always ahead. It'll be 42 years next May.
All right.
We still have to have conversations where she'll say something and I say, "Oh, what'd you mean when you said that? Because here's what I heard."
Yep.
And she'll go, "Well, that's not what I meant." And I go, "Well, that's what I heard you say."
My wife has this annoying habit, and she knows it. So she has this annoying habit where she'll say half of a sentence, and then she'll just stop and go,
Well,
and I'll have to always go, no, I don't know.
Well, your wife has this thing that and I've known her now 20-something years where she'll go, Ed, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
Exactly.
I'm like, I
really don't.
Helga, I don't know what you're saying.
And she gets, and we laugh at our kids, and we laugh about it all the time. And she knows that. She just assumes after all these years that I can read her brain. And I'm like, I'm trying. I've been at it for a long time. I'm still no good at it. I really need you to speak words.
Well, and I think my kids now get really frustrated with us if there's ever, we really, and it's probably because of the training we went through, everything, no matter what the conflict is, we get to, now, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? And we get to that. And one of my daughters, I don't remember what the thing was, but she had either gotten in an argument with her sisters or something like that. And we said, I said her name, and she goes, I don't want to talk about it. I know all you're going to do is ask me what I feel and how I'm feeling. And you want me to know that you care about how I feel. I get it. I don't want to talk about it. And then she went away. And I thought, yeah. But what's interesting.
I love that one.
Yeah. about the spiritual and the being, and the thing we're talking about here is, I did have this conversation with someone the other day about we put way too much emphasis on ideas and beliefs and all of these things when Jesus spends almost all his time talking about what you're going to do. What do you do? And ultimately, what are the habits in your life? Because here's the truth. And we treat this because we're preparing a sermon series on the Sermon on the Mount. Yep. And I think when everybody hears the things on the Sermon on the Mount, you either do one of two things. You either say, that's so impossible, that can't really be what Jesus meant. Or what you take from it is I should strive to at some point not lose my temper as much. Right. I should at some point not be quite as lustful as I was, or a little more honest. There is no understanding of what Jesus is saying is, I want you to create a habit that when the pressure is on, when that moment is upon you, that what comes out of you is not lust. Right. What comes out of you is not anger. And it's not going to be anything you believe. It's going to be something you do. And so I would say even among, and Jesus says this in the Sermon on the Mount, that you're going to know someone by their fruit. You're going to know a tree by its fruit, that you're going to be able to look and see. And so often what Jesus never said, you're going to know a tree by its answers to a doctrinal exam and what it can write down about what they believe about me and the things they've agreed to. Jesus says, you're going to know my followers. At one point he says, by how you love. He's going to say, how about, you're going to know, I'll know if you love me, if you obey what I tell you to do.
Yeah, he eventually says at one point, this is how you know you love me. You do what I say.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you want to know how to know you really love me, do what I say.
And so I think when you look at somebody and you're having a conversation with someone, and maybe with yourself, and you get ultimately to this place of really the real me is the me that's inside. The me in my mind, the me in my heart, my feelings, my soul, whatever this is, and it doesn't include what I actually do, then you're in trouble. And I don't even get in trouble. You're in trouble of whether you actually want to follow Jesus or not. Mm-hmm. And that Jesus is calling you to be his follower, which includes what you do. So to me, the difference between when I most often encounter people who, even Christians who will say things like, I'm not religious, I have a relationship, or I'm not a Christian, I'm spiritual, and all these different kinds of things.
Well, I have a lot of people that come to me and it's always about someone else. And I'm not talking about those. I have a friend. I'm talking about somebody that will go, Ed, I don't know what to do with my 30-year-old son, he's just doing X, Y, Z. Now he follows Jesus. And I'm like, you just described somebody that is not in any way. They don't go to church. They don't pray. They're not involved with the Word of God. They're not involved with the people of God. Their habits are indicating they're not there.
They don't intend to do anything.
They don't intend to do any of that. When you ask them to do any of that, they're not interested. What you're banking on is that you think they believe Jesus died on the cross.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought ultimately, to me, if the point of the question is, I don't know if I'm spiritual or a follower of Jesus, that's where I'd get to. Go through the life of Jesus and say, is my intention to do what Jesus called me to do? Because if my intention is to do what Jesus calls me to do, that does require me to believe some things.
Sure.
And to do some things.
But it's possible I could believe something. I don't think you actually believe them, but I think you can think some things and never intend to do anything.
Well, and I'll also say it is possible for you to do some things that Jesus says to do, and you aren't doing them because Jesus said to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again. I agree with what you're saying, but say it in a way that I think is more.
As one of my professors used to say, if Jesus and I are walking on the road and he just happened to walk up beside me, it turns out I wasn't on that road because of Jesus.
So-
I just happened to be walking alongside of him. People thought I was one of his disciples until he took a left, and I kept walking.
Is the thing I said on Sunday to a group of our people. I said, I often have people who move here from the West Coast or from the North, and they go, people in the South are so kind. They're so much kinder than where I come from. And what they point out to is they hold doors open for me, and they do this. And I said, see, that's coincidentally kind, because the reason that they're doing that is their mom's been dead for 20 years, but they still think their mom is going to whack them upside the head
Or
for not
it's
holding
just
doors
culture.
open.
It really
it's
is
the
just our
culture of,
culture.
I do this. I'm not actually doing it because I see you're made in the image of God and I want to serve you and I want your day to go better. It's, I would look bad as a man if I didn't hold a door open for a
Well,
woman.
a lot of times it's not even conscious. You wind up doing it.
Sure.
I'll say I'm a 62-year-old Southern man. I sometimes, it's just natural. I walk out the door and I hold the door a little bit longer in case somebody's coming out. I don't even know who they are. I don't have a thought about it.
And so we get ourselves in these situations, and I know all of us have had these conversations where someone goes, I know they didn't really do the Jesus thing, but they were so kind. And the idea, they go, but they're doing the stuff Jesus said to do, but that's not the same.
That's what I mean.
Yes.
So there are those two things Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, by your fruit you will know them. But then not long after that, he shows some people who had some fruit, because he says, we healed in your name. We cast out.
Yep.
And Jesus doesn't go, what you did not.
Yep.
Did too, did not. Did too, did not.
Yeah.
He just goes, yeah, you may have done them, but I didn't know you. I didn't know you. They didn't have it. Those things you didn't have anything to do with me.
Because in the end, the goal is a life that is submitted to Jesus as Lord and says, if you call me to do it, that's why I'm going to do it. And there may be even things that I do, and in the moment I do them, I don't know why I would do them. They don't seem like they would work. They don't seem like they'd make sense. But because my Lord and Master told me to do it, I'm going to do it. And then maybe afterwards, often afterwards, I look back and go, oh, that's why he said to do it. Wow, that worked out. But often it doesn't feel that way in the moment.
All right. So I'm not sure we fully answered the question. I think we answered it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, because we don't know for sure what you mean by spiritual. I have
But
a feeling.
I hope you now get a clear picture of what a follower of Jesus is. And then if you can find out what that person means by spiritual, you can compare the two and you'll know. I think that would make it pretty clear.
I agree.
So